UFC 262, Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira for the vacant lightweight UFC title. We expected a submission from Oliveira. We expected a knockout from Chandler. We did not expect a beautiful guillotine attempt from Chandler and a knockout victory for Oliveira. Let's break it down. Round one, Oliveira shoots in for a double leg. Michael Chandler ties him up in a guillotine, arm-in guillotine, pulls guard, modified guard, one leg over the back. And he's wrenching on the neck, but Oliveira remains calm. So as Chandler's ripping on it, he tries to modify and bridge off the ground to roll him over. It doesn't work. As a result, Oliveira's head pops out. He's now in half guard on top, and this is where Chandler goes, man, I gotta get out of here. You don't wanna be on the bottom of Oliveira's half guard or bottom of his anything. So that's when he tries his shoulder press, tries to get up, but in doing so, Chandler gives up his back. He turns to all four, Oliveira transitioning to back mount, and everyone in the crowd is like, okay, we're about to witness the inevitable. Oliveira's on your back, fight's pretty much over. Not so fast. Hooks go in, Chandler stands up. Oliveira transitions to a body lock, figure four triangle around the body from the rear mount control. At that point, Chandler throws himself back, trying to slam Oliveira into the ground. It only makes the situation tighter, so now they're in a back mount, body triangle, full control over under, and Chandler patiently defends that top choking hand. Eventually, he's able to take that hand, slip it over his head, spin within the body triangle, hula hoop escape, and get to his knees. And from there, Oliveira tries to go for a desperate armbar as he escapes, but Chandler's arm slips out. Too little, too late. He stands up, puts a lot of pressure for the rest of the first round, and basically takes the first round based on the amount of damage he did after he was able to escape the deathly back mount of Charles Oliveira. Second round, they come out. Oliveira lands a perfect left hook.
Fight's over.
Drops him, and then follows up with a barrage of punches. The ref separates them. TKO win for Oliveira. Who would have guessed it?
Who would have guessed? There was so much jiu-jitsu. There's so much to talk about. There's so much. I can't wait. Let's get into the position.
And if there is jiu-jitsu, there are the 32 principles through which we're going to filter this Gracie breakdown for you guys today. Starting with that standing guillotine. So when Oliveira shot in, I think he got caught in his feet, so he shot in, and Chandler's like, I'll take it. It's kind of the opposite roles, though. We expect Chandler shooting in and Oliveira tying the rope around his neck. It didn't happen. So as he comes in, he ties perfectly, neutralizes the takedown just long enough, and lands with the correct leg over the back. Now, what Oliveira would have liked to done is to side control the other way and landed on side control on this side. That would have been the safe side. But Chandler did the right thing with this body bite over here and the leg in the half guard. Here's the difference, though, you guys. Chandler was wrenching on it. It was clear in this moment that Chandler's strength was wrestling and not rope tying and guillotines, right? It was clear that he was wrenching as hard as he can. And at this point, Oliveira is just chilling.
And Oliveira's strength is the comfort in submissions.
Yeah.
Because you can't be a master that he is in catching submissions and not have the comfort in the submissions.
You know exactly what it takes to work. And I think
I don't know what he was doing. It could have been maybe he using his shoulder a little bit in Chandler's stomach, but he seemed so relaxed.
he was chilling.
He was just waiting. It wasn't like he was throwing punches to break free.
And here's what's wild. Even if it was perfectly being applied, like the pressure was legitimate,
You can't tell.
Oliveira's calmness, right? This false surrender principle where he's just kind of like, oh, I feel nothing. At this point, his opponent goes, man, he's feeling nothing. We've all been, if you train jiu-jitsu, you know what we're talking about. You go, man, it's not working. Gosh, it's so discouraging.
And that's why he tried something else.
Yes.
He said, let me just change the position. Let me drop my back leg.
Yes,
and
he goes
try
here.
to roll him
He took
over.
this down, and he went for a river principle application, which would have looked like pushing and flipping over the top, transitioning into an elbow connection and anaconda. That's a river principle application where you go from one submission to the next submission to the next submission. So the water always just flows down the river. The problem is, when Chandler dropped his foot down, Oliveira knew that he was going to try to flip him. So Oliveira just lowered his hips and sprawled. And Chandler was so burnt out on his arms after 2 or 3 attempts to squeeze with all he had. But each one of those squeezes was for 5 or 4 seconds. And they were almighty 100% energy. Instead, if he would have squeezed for 70%, 60% energy, but held it for 15 seconds with a little more love right here and not so. What's the difference in my intensity right there?
Maybe. We don't know.
We don't know. But let me just tell you this.
Possible.
If we would have flipped the tables and Oliveira was one doing the choking,
It would have been tricky.
it would have been a 70% squeeze for 15 seconds. It's called the squeeze. And anybody, the masters of chokes know this. It's less intensity for longer duration that gets the guys at the highest level. Slow and long. It's a marathon.
Yeah.
And Chandler was going for the sprint on his neck. Oliveira knew it.
And Oliveira could feel that. And it's a moment for him to apply the prevention principle of simply preventing him from finishing the guillotine
And flipping.
from flipping him. And he knows, Oliveira knows that Chandler's burning.
Yes.
Burning. It's only a matter of time that something's going to change and going to freeze.
And here's what Oliveira knows. Those same arms that are burning in this guillotine right now are the arms that are going to try to defend the choke later. So it's all investment towards the future. And the prevention principle teaches if you just prevent progress and the objective of your opponent, that's a victory by itself. So then what happened? After the failed river principle on Chandler's part, he tried to roll him, wasn't successful. And then another bridge, the head pops out because his arms were burning at this point. We land in half guard. And at this point, we talk about the buoyancy principle that sadly, again, it's an asset, but it's also a liability, right? It always is. When it comes to wrestlers, heavy duty wrestlers, the buoyancy principle is really their curse. It's also their blessing. It's also their blessing.
Well, it's people.
It's
not even wrestlers.
It's
human beings don't like to be on their backs. Because of the buoyancy principle,
neither do cats.
People want to get up at all costs. And that, in many cases, can work in the top person's favor.
Yes, so the buoyancy principle attempt from Chandler was capitalized on. So a buoyancy principle can be an offensive or a defensive consideration. In Oliveira's position, all he's thinking is, if Chandler tries to surface, buoyancy is the tendency of air bubbles underwater to surface, right? That's natural. It's just laws of nature. So as the wrestler or the bottom human wants to surface, they end up giving their back. And as long as Oliveira can reposition himself favorably around that surfacing bubble of air, he can take advantage of the new position that will result. And in this case, it was backbound. Here's how he did it. And listen, Chandler's escape was very good. His attempt was frame to loosen up the neck hug. It was shoulder press with a nice C-clamp here, turn, and then slip the head and full extension. Try to come back and hug my neck.
Can't.
The more you hug my neck, now I get up and I get out. That's what he was trying to do. The problem is that shoulder press get up from half guard requires resistance from this person. It requires you to contest it.
And Oliveira had a certain level of connection, but he used the detachment principle. He knows when to let go.
Yes.
Because if he would have stayed connected, it would have gave the resistance Hender's talking about. But knowing when to detach and kind of let the arm slip by, it allowed for the buoyancy principle to go all the way through. You went all
In
the way
his
through.
favor. So at that pivotal moment, if Oliveira would have remained attached or connected, principle number one, he would have gotten thrown off. But because he yielded and he accepted the inevitability of Chandler's getup and he was able to detach principle number two, he was able to turn the tables and take advantage and get the back mount. So from here, what happened?
This is where you said it got bad.
Yes.
Everyone's like, oh no.
And then we talk about the ratchet principle. It just kept getting worse. Ratchet principle is the progressive movement in one direction without allowing movement or regression in the opposite direction, right? So from here, he went from half guard.
It was bad when the head slipped out.
Yes.
Because now he's on top of you.
Yes.
It was bad when he turned and he gave his back.
Yes.
And now, how can you make it worse?
Shoot, it can only get worse from here if he goes body triangle, right? So we have hooks in and he starts to get up. And as he started to get up, that's when he locks in the body triangle on Chandler's back. So again, ratchet means like click, click,
advance,
click,
advance,
click,
advance.
And no regression during that advancement. So then Chandler's here like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And he knows, Chandler knows this. If you stay on your feet, you can't use your feet.
Yes.
I only have two appendages, two arms.
I'm not quite sure why he stood up.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of energy.
Yeah. Well,
And
we saw the slam.
And it got worse.
We saw the
went
slam.
to the body triangle.
Especially with someone like Oliveira, when you stand up, they're going to be sticky on you. They're not going to let you stay 4 minutes like this and just attack your neck.
But it's exciting though when people get slammed like that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So then Chandler was like, all right, if we're going to go down, we're going to go down on my terms. So he goes and he freaking jumps backwards and they, boom, land full torso. Now the question, how did Oliveira feel when he got slammed, you think?
I mean, how worried was he before he got slammed?
I think he was hoping for the slam.
I think.
You feel me? You feel me?
I don't
think
think
he's
he
like,
was
please,
worried.
bring it.
Yo, I think he gets slammed for a living.
This is what they
This
do.
is what he does.
It's padded. The mat is soft.
The question is, if his neck is relaxed and his head hits the ground,
That's the only
yes,
concern.
it can be dangerous.
But let's not confuse a body triangle back slam in which our backs hit the ground first, not our heads.
Yeah.
Let's not conflate that with a Quentin Rampage Jackson pride slam on your head
From the
from a
guard.
triangle. Not from the guard, from the triangle.
Yeah.
Where someone picks you up and as a result they go,
Even right now, for example.
this is where we would land.
This is where we
Boom!
land. Yeah.
So it's totally different because I control the distance of Hidon's head to the ground so I can knock him out. But back to the body triangle. So what happened here? We landed and so Chandler
it
was
keeps
like,
getting worse.
it got tighter,
It
yeah.
keeps getting worse and worse. He's more tired. Now he's in a worse position, full body triangle, where before it was hooks. He could have continued to focus on trying to get out and ignoring his neck.
Yes.
But instead, he went straight prevention principle and focused only on what the most immediate threat is, which is this rear naked choke.
It was very beautiful to see Chandler switch gears to a fully defensive, prevention of progress mindset.
Amazing.
101 jiu-jitsu, just defend and be patient here, right? So he didn't. He chilled. And because he was so relaxed here, he applied the false surrender principle. Because when you're in a back mount, how tight is your body triangle going to be at any given time?
Well, if I take Chandler's back, in the first few seconds, after I just felt what I felt, I'm going to be really tight.
Right.
But then when I feel that Chandler's exhausted and Chandler has no more fight in him and he's not doing too much, I can allow my legs to relax, because the goal, it's about conserving energy. Even in a game like this where it's, rounds and so on and time limits, you still, if you can relax your body a little bit, you want to, and Oliveira did just that.
Yeah, and people will match your energy. If I whisper to you, what do you want to do?
I'll whisper back.
But what if I yell at you?
Yeah, I'm going to start yelling back.
There you go. So
but I always whisper at you. You never whisper back.
We'll cut that part out. Listen, you guys, the point is when someone shakes your hand and they squeeze, what do? You squeeze. But if someone shakes your hand very soft, you should also approach the hand very soft. The point is, the false surrender principle is the principle of changing the opponent's energy by changing your own energy. By falsely yielding to the situation while remaining vigilant, by falsely yielding, his body triangle relaxes. It gets comfortable, right? False surrender. Like the bird who sneaks into the house and you capture it, it relaxes its body, right? It's just pretending, and then when you let it go, it's gone. So watch Chandler right here. So he did this. He was relaxing his body, so the triangle loosened up. At one point, he finally got a good 2-on-1 double C clamp. He slips this over his head, and he spun inside of the body triangle.
Oliveira is so natural that he throws an arm lock in the middle of that.
He felt the body triangle slipping, so he threw it.
So many submissions happen like that, but not against Chandler, not with that level of awareness.
Because it was reactive. That armbar was reactive to Oliveira's very timely escape, perfectly timed. At the perfect moment, from the perfect prevention principle, he transitioned to the false surrender. And then from the false surrender, he transitioned into like a desperate armbar attempt, but it was too late. And the tension principle prevented that from being possible. What does that mean? Tension principle is the idea of using tension for you and against your opponent. And the tension principle states that when there's tension on the rope, if two people are pulling on a rubber band tight, you don't want to try to adjust your grip on a rope or a rubber band that is being pulled tight, right? You adjust your grip when things are loose. So right here, what happened is he false surrenders, he slips. He does the hula hoop escape. And the key detail, hook my leg, was that Chandler busted out of this leg. And then he was able to spin within. The problem is, because I'm currently pulling tension on the rope, go for the armbar, it's already too active, right? To try to catch someone in that kind of motion, it's going to be very difficult. There's tension, there's explosiveness in the movement there, and that prevents the armbar from being effective all the way through.
Chandler stands up.
Gets up, boom.
And then the next 2.5 minutes
It's pretty bad, yeah. The remainder of the round, he's on top, in the guard, going down, getting back up, going down, striking, landing elbows, putting a lot of damage. And it was quite the situation. At the end of the first round, people were like, man, Charles got his hands full. Oliveira's got his hands full. We're going to see how this goes.
Yeah, and Chandler kept going forward, kept attacking.
The fact that he survived the back mount was remarkable.
Crazy.
He might be bummed out that he lost, but I'm telling you, there were huge victories there. And for Oliveira, man, Oliver, even after your jiu-jitsu, and I don't know how I feel when we roll and I try my best move on you and it fails, and I had a perfect position for it, what do I feel? God, I just might as well tap out now because I had my chance. So sometimes I get discouraged when my jiu-jitsu doesn't pan out the way it should, and the point is, he kept his spirit strong, came out in the second, and won the fight after having his jiu-jitsu be neutralized so effectively by Chandler in the first round. You guys, forgive the Hironji and the Henerji right now, but this was very exciting to watch. Even though there wasn't a submission victory, there was so much jiu-jitsu and there were so many principles firing. But most importantly, you guys, the 32 principles, they're coming. They're everywhere. And they're on their way, you guys. The course hasn't been released yet. We're almost done with it. It's unbelievable. And we've given early access viewing to a few top black belts of the world to get their opinions. But let me just tell you this. 32 principles, everything changes when you look at jiu-jitsu through this lens. You know what it's like? It's like a night vision goggles. Night vision goggles, if you have them, everything comes to life. When you don't have your night vision, you're blind. Seeing it through the 32 principles, everything changes.
Listen, I think they want to hear what someone else has to say.
Maybe
Let's listen to what Hanzo has to say.
Everyone knows Jiu-Jitsu is based on universal principles. This is the first time in history that someone dedicated their time to develop this course based on principles.
This is the essence of Jiu-Jitsu.
This is when someone gets tapped and they're like, oh.
Hi, I'm Gracie, and I'm here to let you know that my nephews Hiro and Henner developed an unbelievable course, the 32 Principles of Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu can be very complicated, but once you learn the principles, new horizons are all open. You're going to learn much faster. The best part is the principles are universal. It doesn't matter if you train gi, no gi, you're going to use those to make your Jiu-Jitsu better. Hiro and Henner were always amazing teachers, but this time they outdid themselves.